Hello, Dave here. Oh, why does that sound different?
You usually say with my wife, Cathy.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was like, what's changed? Okay. Hello, it's Dave here, and I'm with my wife, Cathy.
Hello, good morning.
We're doing another Cinemile, where we walk to the cinema and we walk back from the cinema. But we're not doing that today, we're getting the bus.
We're getting the bus, and it's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Our Cinemiles are getting increasingly earlier.
Yes, so we're with our son Oscar here. We're taking him to a parent-baby screening, which are very awkwardly scheduled at Tuesday mornings.
At 10 a.m?
I actually had to take time off work for this, so this is kind of lame. And I literally had to tell my boss Laura. She was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Anything nice?" "Oh, yeah, I'm going to go see the movie The Battle of the Sexes," about the 1973 tennis match between Billie Jean Riggs and
Steve Carell,
the other guys. I don't even know their
Oh,
name.
is that our bus? Oh no. Yeah, but look, it's our first family trip to the cinema, so we're excited. I've been to a couple of these screenings, as they're always midweek, and I'm on maternity leave. Dave hasn't. I don't know anything about this movie, not particularly bothered about it, but I'm excited to go to the cinema. And the best part about this screening is they bring you cake and coffee.
Oh, nice.
To your seat.
I brought my own coffee though.
Well, you're going to get
I'll
more
get extra coffee.
You're going to get extra coffee.
Gonna need it.
Or
So
you
do
could
the
get a
babies-
hot chocolate maybe.
And do the babies make a crazy amount of noise?
A lot of them do. Oscar hasn't, but he's only been twice, so this could be the time he kicks off. But yeah, so I actually had never heard of this tennis match before.
You don't know anything about this.
Don't
do
know
you?
anything
So
about it.
I know why it's famous. I know how it ends, so I'm not going to say anything.
Well, I know it was the first kind of big, popular, big screen match between a man and a woman. I do know that much from the trailer, and I do know that. I find it annoying in Hollywood when actors are in kind of the same movies together, and I've seen Steve Carell and Emma Stone
they were
in
Crazy Stupid Love together.
So that tends to
Why is
annoy
that
me.
annoying? It's a
I don't
small
know why.
world.
It annoys me a little bit. It annoys me.
It annoys you when actors play different characters
when they're just
in
like
different movies.
Oh,
Is that
that
what you're
pairing
saying?
worked once. Let's just use them again, like in La La Land with
To be
Emma.
fair, they didn't really share the screen in Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, and Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling have been in too many movies together. So anyway, I was a bit annoyed by that, but I think it looks good, and I'm a fan of both of those actors. So
All right.
yeah.
And for all you tennis fans out there who have pointed out that I didn't say either of their names correctly, I just somehow combined their names into one name. Their names are Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, not Bobby Jean Riggs.
Oh, here's our boss.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll
Okay.
see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello?
Eureka, Billy Jean! It's Bobby Riggs. I had a great idea. Male chauvinist pig versus hairy-legged feminist. You're still a feminist, right?
I'm a tennis player who happens to be a woman.
Don't hang up.
And by the way, I shave my legs.
Billie Jean King, already a champion of women's rights, is now the most successful female player of all time.
I am not saying that women don't belong on the court. Who would pick up the balls otherwise?
Oh my God.
There isn't a single thing I don't hate about Bobby Riggs.
You know what I'm doing? I'm cooking. I'm cooking! I won the triple in Wimbledon. I could beat Billie Jean King. Does she have the nerve?
Call Bobby. Tell him it's on.
All right. So we are just out of Battle of the Sexes. What did you think of that, Cathy?
I really enjoyed it. I was a bit worried that it was going to be like really on the nose, being called Battle of the Sexes, around the feminist issues that it was tackling. And we had also, before we started recording the podcast, been discussing how neither of us could really think of any good tennis movies. We were remembering...
Or any tennis movies at all.
Yeah,
so
Wimbledon, Match
with
Point.
Paul Bettany. Match Point was the Woody Allen, one with Jonathan
There's
Rhys-Meyers.
nothing really memorable.
Which wasn't great.
So the closest comparison for me that I can think of with this movie, and I mean this as a compliment because it's one of my favourite all-time movies, is A League of Their Own, which is about the World War II female baseball players, starring Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, and love that movie. And I would really hold this up there. Now, it's not as joyous as that movie.
Oscar needs his dummy.
It's not as joyous as that movie, but it's a fun one.
Okay, so we won't, just to say, we won't spoil the outcome, even though it is real life. But, Cathy didn't know the outcome.
Yeah, I'm
of
so
the match.
glad. I didn't know, so we'll do that on Spoiler Street.
We'll turn to Spoiler Street in a bit, so we'll just talk general.
Amazing central performance from Steve Carell. I thought he was fantastic.
Very charismatic.
He made it what could have been an unsympathetic character quite sympathetic. He's playing somebody who is a chauvinist pig is putting the show back into...
chauvinist pig.
And he said, I'm putting the show back into chauvinist. Now, I know these are all real lines, but they're very funny. But he was a bit tragic, and you kind of felt like he wasn't actually really... The way Steve Carell portrayed him was he wasn't probably actually a chauvinist, sexist pig. He was just somebody who wanted limelight and knew that was his best vehicle to get attention. Yeah. And whereas the underlying misogyny and sexism from everyone else felt very real.
Yes, in particular, there's one character. Well, I say character. They're all real people. There's a famous sports commentator called Jack something. It's gone. He's played by Bill Pullman in this.
Really well.
And he was a former tennis player and went on to become a tennis commentator. And he's very much... I mean, the stuff he says on camera, which we can only presume was actually said in real life, is just shocking.
Shocking.
Absolutely
like if a man
shocking.
said that today, he would be... crucified.
Like men, basically he says men are just better than women. They're faster, they're more competitive, they have an edge. Like
he says women can play it physically but they can't play it mentally. Like he's disparaging women on every level, because it is a truth that if you have the world number one tennis player who is female and the world number one tennis player who was male, it is a truth that physically the man would be stronger, right? Because men are physically stronger than women.
Well, not necessarily. You can have a woman who is physically stronger than a particular man.
Yeah, but I'm talking about if you're the world number one of both male and female tennis.
Yes, but you're just talking physicality. I mean,
I know,
tennis
that's why
isn't
I'm saying,
just physicality.
That's why I'm saying what Bill Pullman was doing in this movie was so vile, because he's attacking the women's mental capacities.
Yes, their competitiveness, their edge.
He's saying they don't have it mentally. He's not even addressing the physical stuff, so he's taking away the mental capacity of a woman as well as demeaning them physically. So he's really vile, and he plays it really well because he's quite a charmer. And she says at one point, look, I appreciate that you're a gentleman when a woman's in the home or in the kitchen, but you will not accept a woman when she's trying to do anything that you're not comfortable with. Yeah. Which is like the deep-rooted problem with men like that. You know, men who say, but I love women. It's like, well, you love them in a certain position.
Yes, I've been married. You know, I'm married for 32 years. I'm a big fan of women.
You don't love women who are looking for equality. You love women who fit into what your mould of a woman is. So
and this is literally the kind of man which is somewhat of a cliche these days, but this, you know, these things are cliches for a reason. He's the kind of man who's sitting in a gentleman's lounge sipping brandy,
I know,
wearing
it's ridiculous.
A smoking jacket,
and I think Emma Stone played the character. Now I have to say, as I said, I didn't know the outcome of the match, and I didn't know either of the characters. Like, I haven't seen real footage of them, but I thought she was really excellent in this. I thought it was a very understated performance from her and a very powerful one. And actually, I know she won the Oscar for La La Land, but I felt that this was a more powerful performance, and
more interesting character,
more of a mature performance
complex.
From her. Probably the most mature performance we've ever seen her give. Like she feels like a fully fledged, like, amazing actress in this movie, and I think I really enjoyed all the dynamic with her and all the men she was engaging with, and her husband, who looked like a Ken doll. I have never seen that actor before. Have you?
No, I mean I looked him up briefly. I didn't really recognise any.
Yeah, I thought he was an interesting, because he was like a side character to her life, and he seemed to accept that.
But
very
he was very
willingly.
supportive.
Very over supportive now. If I was in that position that he was in, and we'll get to that in Spoiler Street, I wouldn't be that supportive of you. So I admire, if that's how her husband was in real life, I would greatly admire him, his martyrdom for the cause.
Yeah. I will say, I thought, I really like this movie as well. I would highly recommend it. It's from the husband and wife directing team that did Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh wow, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
We love a husband and wife team.
And they did Ruby Sparks, I think.
Oh, I love Ruby
Sparks. Which was
Sparks.
also a great movie. So yeah, I thought, like, really nicely put together. There's not a whole lot of, like, directorial flair in this, I would say.
I think because they're sticking very closely to the real footage. That's my impression.
But the it's very much a character drama, and as you said, I think it's all in the performances. And Steve Carell and Emma Stone really just they fleshed out these people so well. They just felt very complex, which is interesting because it's a flip side to how they were presenting themselves both publicly, because this was very much became a circus.
And they even said it's alpha male versus alpha female.
And they were both playing up to that in front of the camera. You know, they were sort of joshing and saying this is men versus women, and it became it became very much like a televisual sort of weird event, almost like a joke.
It was a spectacle.
Absolutely spectacle. But behind it all, there are real. This movie is about how society is shifting very much. It's a time in which women were gaining traction, and it's also a lot very much about LGBTQ rights and the dawning of that revolution.
I didn't feel like that. I felt like I know now she's obviously an openly gay woman and she's campaigned for LGBT rights, but in this movie I felt like her romantic side plot was the bit that didn't really work for me, because I felt like the point of the movie was about this battle of the sexes and the build up to that, and that's what I was really interested in.
Yes, but wrapped up in that is the dawning of her own sexual awakening, and I thought it was her lover was very well played by Andrea Riseborough. I don't know quite how to say that.
Yeah, she was good.
There's some lovely moments of intimacy there.
If this is supposed to be real life, and maybe it's true, did the dawning of her becoming openly gay exactly happen in the same moment that this match happened?
No,
because that was how the film put it, and I felt like I really enjoyed the phone call when Steve Carell phones her and says, he puts it to her that he wants to do this match, but that phone call happened immediately after she was with the woman. So I'm like, why are these two being mixed up together? And maybe they were in real life, in which case fine. But if it's an artistic choice, I don't think that it was a particularly clever one, because one detracted from the other, and I would have liked to see them both explored on their own.
Come here, you're 100%. I don't know exactly how the real life events played out, but you can see where the dramatic license has been taken.
And the woman she's with is her hairdresser, and at one point they say, something's missing in this outfit. Is it the shoes? Is it the dress? And then the hairdresser walks in and says, It's the hair. And I'm like, you arrived at this exact moment where you could make your hairdresser line. And then somebody says, I know one thing, never come between a woman and her hairdresser. Really?
There are so many, which this is where the movie let itself down for me. There are so many cliches that it actually pulled me out of this being a real thing that happened, such as, these aren't spoilers, but there's a scene where all the girls are talking in the toilet and they're like, I don't think she can beat Bobby, he's just too good. I mean, I love the girl, but my money's on him. And then who walks out of the stall?
Yeah.
Emma Stone walks out. Doesn't say anything and then just goes to wash her hands silently. Come on.
And a toilet bitching session 101, you check who's in the one cubicle in the bathroom before you start.
Yeah, you're talking it to an expert toilet bitcher right here.
And
Cathy Cullen.
What I did really enjoy about this movie, though, at the start, and again I would have liked this to be explored a little bit more, was the stuff about Billie Jean setting up her own tournament. That's amazing that she did that. Basically, whatever tournament she was part of, men were being paid 8 times more than women, which she protested against. And it was just a really interesting conversation where Bill Pullman's saying, well, men tend to be the primary breadwinners, and she says, well, not my family. They say men draw in more of a crowd, and she's saying, oh, why did you sell more tickets to the men's final than the women's final? And they're like, well, no. She's like, so why? Please articulate to me why men are getting 8 times more than women. And they couldn't argue it. And she says, fine, I'm setting up my own tournament. And that was also fun. And that was the kind of when it was reminding me of A League of Their Own in that movie. And the reason they set up the female tournament was because all the men were at war and they wanted entertainment at home, so it was slightly different. Yeah. It was set up by men, it wasn't as feminist as this was, but that was so interesting. And then that just came and went, and we never saw any of that tournament, and we didn't really see the politics of it.
Well, that kind of gets resolved, and then it's more the spectacle of the match.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the spectacle of the match it became a symbol.
It was, and that's what always happens with these women's issues, is that basically it comes down to all of for all these women who were invested this around the world. They said 90 million people were watching it, and it was the biggest live sporting event of its time. It was the biggest ever that had ever happened, and it always puts all the weight on one woman's shoulders. It's like the stuff with Hillary Clinton in the States, it's like, oh well, she's our chance to have a female president, now it's blown. It's why is it always down to one woman? It's so unfair. And that's what this was. Whether or not she beat him, and we won't spoil the ending, it shouldn't have mattered. And also, you're talking about a 30-year-old woman in the fitness of her, the peak of her fitness, playing a 55-year-old man. That's a spectacle. That's just ridiculous.
Well, that's what I thought was interesting about this movie, because we love sports movies, you and me, like absolutely love them.
Oh, love them.
Even though we're not into sports at all. But
tennis is the only sport I can actually follow, so I was pleased.
Sports movies are just excellent because it's the classic. It's always an underdog story, almost always, like Rocky and whatever, and you're watching them get better and better, and it's the lead up to the event, so there's natural stakes and suspense. But interestingly, Emma Stone's, Billie Jean King is not the underdog here, because as you said, she kind of has the edge. Like,
she's physically powerful and mentally powerful.
Exactly. So the real underdog story is it's women. Women are the underdog in society.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's almost like the thing should be called Battle of the Sexes, because that's what it's actually about. But actually, do you know what I thought was interesting? And I was sitting there thinking, this movie is showing us, it's very much playing in that Mad Men playground, which is like that nostalgic, rose-tinted, like, oh my God, how ridiculous was things back then when, men were pigs and they got away with things like that. And we're so advanced now and things have changed. Hang on, no, nothing has really changed.
Nothing has changed. Look who the current president of the United States of America is. Someone who knowingly abuses women and there is on tape boasting about it before the election, and he still got nominated.
Yes.
That's the culture you're talking about.
This kind of misogynism still exists. The gender pay gap is still there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not in any way equal. Also, we just went to a parent and baby screening, and there was maybe 20 to 30 parents, and each with a baby in the room. I would say 19 of those were mothers, and then there was me.
There was another dad.
Oh, there was another dad. Okay, well, 2 dads in the whole room. I mean, clearly society hasn't quite taken the massive shift that we think it has, where we're all equal, because the dads are all still going to work and the mothers are taking maternity leave. And, partly, there's various reasons for that, but you can say... Well, the uptake in this country
is very low on shared parental leave.
Well, there you go. I mean, and there's a numerous reasons for that. Traditionalism maybe, but I think part of it is the gender pay gap.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Families can't afford to live on the mom's salary instead of the father's salary.
Yeah, and we're lucky. We're in a lucky position where we actually earn the same salary, which is very unusual. So to us, it's just a choice of who wants to be off at that point. But for most people, that's not the case. And it's, what did they say? It's about 70 cents to the dollar in the States, the pay difference. Now, I don't know what the pay difference is in tennis now, and I'm interested to look that up and see what it is, or if there's a pay difference. I don't know.
I would like to think there isn't, but
yeah, who knows? And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a difference.
But don't you think it's interesting that there's still in all sports there's men and women's categories, like they don't compete together? And is that just...
That's just because this is a fact. I'm saying this as someone who 100% roots for women in every occasion. It's a fact, as I said, that men and women are just physically different. Like, there's mixed doubles and things like that, but it's not the case. And I know in football, I was just reading that football is one of the biggest gender pay gaps in the world. You see, like, what someone like, say, Wayne Rooney earns, right? I don't know what he earns, bloody 200 grand a week or something. And then women's football, like, they get paid nothing like that. So I think football, I saw an article on it during the week, is one of the biggest pay gaps in the world in England, which doesn't surprise me, but that's more because the men are so overpaid.
Well, that's because people will pay to see the men.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to see the girls play,
and it's
which
really
is essentially
interesting.
Bill Pullman's argument.
Kind of on this point, but slightly different. When I love the Women's Hour BBC podcast, I was listening to that yesterday, and they were talking about women and how women are perceived. Or was it the BBC Women's Hour? Actually, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to. Anyway,
this is great podcast.
Great, yeah. They were
Good
saying
rambling.
that women are always said to apologise too much and say sorry too much.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like, what does too much mean? And what they mean is too much in comparison to men. Men are the benchmark.
Well, as in, we don't apologise enough.
Well, it's just, when you say too much, what do you mean? You need to analyse when people say things like that. You mean in comparison to a man. And women use the word sorry in a nuanced way, so they don't just use the word sorry to apologise and put themselves down. They might do it in a clever, self-deprecating way to get a point across without appearing aggressive. Like, there's loads of nuanced ways that women are using that language, but then we're told, don't say sorry in work, it diminishes you, and it makes you look weak. And actually, that's not something I agree with. But it's interesting, the benchmark is always a man. So in football, to say women are being underpaid is actually, no, men are being way overpaid. Why are they earning that kind of money? That's obscene to fucking kick a ball around a pitch. But anyway, that's a tangent. And overall, I'm really glad I saw this movie. I love what it explores, albeit it's not one of the best movies I've ever seen.
It's a little oversimplistic.
Yeah, and
in ways, but
it's
then
a bit silly. Ultimately, as I said, it's a
movie.
30-year-old woman having a spectacle match with a 55-year-old man. But I love everything it represents, and I really admire Billie Jean. I think she seems like an incredible person, and I'm really interested now to go and watch the documentary about it.
Same. I think parts of this when I was watching it, and I thought the tennis match was very well recreated. I think they did body doubles.
It looked fantastic, and
but it was exciting.
People who enjoy watching tennis, it was really fun to watch.
But it made me think, I'd rather just watch the real tennis match or watch a documentary about this, and I think that probably would be more interesting. But I think what you do get with this movie is you get to explore through, I would imagine, some dramatic license and fictionalizing. You get to explore the behind the scenes and the their personal lives, which actually were well written.
They were well written,
well
and it's not that
so.
I didn't want to see her love plot. I just thought the way they meshed them together was a bit silly. Like, it was all too kind of pat and neat. And I did enjoy Sarah Silverman as her manager as well. I thought that was a really good performance from her. It was a good cast. There was also now I don't know who played his son, but there was kind of slightly odd plot with his son kind of supporting him and then not supporting him.
Why don't we just move on to Spoiler Street at this stage?
We just turned on to Spoiler Street, that's handy.
Oh, it's convenient. Here it is. So spoilers for Battle of the Sexes / real life.
Yes, no. And you can spoil real life, because I didn't know the ending, and I was so glad I didn't know it, because I was really on the edge of my seat thinking, she better bloody win this match.
But then if you thought about it for a second, like, why would this match be so famous?
Exactly.
Like, it can only have been that.
Well, I think it would have been that famous because 90 million people were watching it and all those people are commenting on it, so I did think potentially she could have lost it.
No, but you had the Margaret Court game before that, so which I thought was interesting. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, me neither.
I thought this was like a big first time that a man had played a woman, but no, it was like, no, wait, it happened a few weeks ago.
And that's what raised the stakes way more for this match, was because she was so pissed off that Margaret Court took that game in the first place, because she said to her, what happens if you lose? And then she's like, this is what happens when you lose. Women are ridiculed. And again, that's putting too much pressure on the shoulders of one woman. Margaret was right to take that match because she thought she was going to win an easy 30 grand and make a point. And I also enjoyed the fact that Steve Carell's character was like a gambler, and he was kind of doing all this like to kind of sate his own gambling desire as well as his need for attention. All that stuff was like, it was a genuinely nuanced character and layered. Like, it wasn't just this disgusting sexist pig so that we're all sitting there hating him, because that would have been really boring.
No, because he was quite like affable and likable even when he was like provoking people.
Yeah, and do you know what? I felt sorry for him when he lost. I really did, because I thought, he's put so much into this, including gambling on himself to win, which is just such a stupid thing to do.
So much of his own pride was wrapped up in it. He seemed like a very interesting person.
Yeah, and she was amazing, and I was so happy for her when she won. And then so we can kind of speak in more detail now around what was going on in her personal life, was that she kind of had a sexual awakening and slept with a woman for the first time, and her husband found out in a really good scene.
I thought that was excellent.
Completely unspoken, her husband kind of arrives at the room and figures out that she's been sleeping with this woman, and they don't mention it at all, but they're both like, it's a great performance from Emma Stone. They both know. It's so uncomfortable, you feel so terrible for both of them. And then at the end of it, he's strapping up her knees with ice, and at the end he just says, look, I'm just going to get another room so that you can be by yourself. And that's kind of it. And everything that needs to be said has been said through other words and through body language, and I thought that was an amazing scene.
And in that moment, and I thought he just says bye and then leaves before she can say anything else. And it was kind of reflected later on when Steve Carell and Bobby and his wife Priscilla, and she's explaining to him why she can't be with him, that she loves him but she just cannot be with him. And then he did a similar thing. He just said, okay, I understand, bye, and then just walked up and left. So it was just very...
Yeah, it was
just almost, maybe it's reflective of how, society didn't allow people to have very open conversations about their emotions
I
or
don't
who
know.
they are
That's
in
why
even
I'd
in
love
that
to
time.
know a bit more about her husband, because to me it was very much like Tammy Wynette, like Stand By Your Man, like, except he was standing by his woman. If you were in the middle of a bloody tournament or whatever, and I arrived to surprise you and you're blatantly sleeping with someone else, I would not sit there putting ice on your knees, being kind to you, telling your lover to back off so that you've space to win this tennis match. Like, I found all that like quite shocking.
Well,
and
who
then
knows?
at the
Maybe
end,
he was more. Maybe he's just invested in her and her brand and wants her to succeed. Or maybe, you could just intuit that was his livelihood. She said she was the maiden breadwinner.
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
he had a lot to lose.
And she did have, she was going to win 100 grand if she beat Steve Carell. And then kind of at the end we're told that they divorced. She's now got a partner and they're godparents to his kids with his new partner. So obviously they all are still very friendly. But I was watching that thinking, this is a very unusual male character to see on screen. Not in the least because of his Ken Barbie hair doll. It was amazing. And yeah, really good performance from Bill Pullman. I really enjoyed him. I've seen him in The Ringer, or no, not The Ringer, The Sinner on Netflix, which I really liked. It's a good binge watch. And he's so wrecked looking in The Sinner, like he's terrible, and he's playing this really downtrodden character. So to see him looking so dapper and smart in this was quite a different performance, which I enjoyed.
like Bill Pullman. We don't get enough Bill Pullman
No,
these
we really
days.
don't.
All right, will we leave it there?
Yeah, I think
Pretty
I would
cold.
definitely recommend this movie. And what I love about these parent baby screenings in a way is you have no choice in what you're going to see. There's one movie a week. Take it or leave it. Because this isn't... I wouldn't have gone to this. No, I wouldn't
neither.
have. And I certainly wouldn't have gone to Victoria and Abdul, which I saw a couple of weeks ago there. So it's hit or miss, really.
I probably would. This is the kind of movie I might have downloaded.
When
it
it's
comes
out.
in a few months.
But we had fun. Our first family trip to the cinema. It was nice.
I know, it was lovely just sitting with Oscar on my lap, and he was staring intently at the screen. And then he vomited all over himself.
It was really
and then he
nice.
shat himself.
And then you missed a couple of scenes because you had to go and change him. And the cake was amazing, so that's always worth it.
if I ever shat myself at the cinema, everyone would be talking about it.
And it's very decadent to be on a Tuesday morning eating cake at 10:30 in the cinema. I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, successful
Do you
first
see Oscar
family
buzz
cinema
for this,
outing.
Oscar buzz for this movie, for sure.
He was buzzing, all right, when he shat himself. Hey!
No, I see Emma Stone and Steve Carell getting nominated.
This feels like, I'm with you. They will get nominations. I think this is the kind of Best Picture nomination that they will want and need right now, particularly in the current
scandal,
climate of Hollywood.
And it's a November release, which means we're gunning for an award. Because when they should have released it was March 8th for International Women's Day. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But obviously they're holding out for awards season.
Yeah, and this is the kind of movie the Oscars love.
Yeah.
Like nostalgia, rose-tinted sort of views that position current society as above it because we've progressed so much.
And particularly interesting that his last nomination was for, was it The Foxcatcher? Also a sporting movie where he was the wrestling coach. Which he was also
Carell.
amazing in. He's so good.
So good.
But yeah.
All
anyway.
right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Let us know what you thought. We're on the social medias. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram at The Cinemile. You can email us at thecinemile@gmail.com.
Yes, we always forget to plug our email.
Yeah, we got some lovely emails.
Yeah, and we are on iTunes, Acast, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. We would greatly appreciate if you search for The Cinemile on iTunes
or wherever you listen to. We're on all the things.
We're on all of them, but for some reason the iTunes ratings matter. So please, if you enjoy this podcast and you like getting it for free, go on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, and it would be greatly appreciated.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Personally, I wish the women would stay in the home and do the kitchen work and take care of the babies and compete in areas where they can compete in.